2022 marks the historical endpoint of the current monetary system and must be replaced by a new financial system and its currency, the CBDC. What is CBDC and how will it influence our financial situation and our life in general? How can we prepare for it? Hello fellow shrewd investors, welcome to another video in your channel. This video is quite heavy in terms of information load, so please listen carefully. The year 2023 is the end of all financial freedom and therefore the death of the big part of freedom in the world. Our financial system is broken and can no longer be sustained. The world financial system that was last revised in 1971 had already experienced few crises. The last yet the most serious of them being financial crisis in 2007-2008. This dying financial system on the ICU bed could be kept somehow alive by the central banks. Their method to keep it alive was based on two different strategies. First strategy is creating money out of nothing, the fiat money. Fiat money is the printing of money that is not backed by any valuable such as gold or silver or anything with a stable value, and consequently governments can print fiat money in an unlimited capacity at their own discretion. Therefore, it is important to mention that all fiat money is born with inherent debt due to the lack of backing by a trusted valuable commodity. The second strategy is to lower the interest rate, that is the lending rate. Since the introduction of the fiat money in the monetary system was completed in 1971, when the US government abandoned backing of the currency by gold, the so-called gold standard, the central banks had to juggle with the interest rates all the time with a tendency to lower and lower interest rates. In the year 2020, we reached an interest rate of about 0%, which marked the last breath of the fiat money. Actually, the financial system is on deathbed since 2008 crisis. The fiat money was about to die, so the central banks could not do any gain with a zero interest rate. The central banks began to print fiat money in an unprecedented amount in the history after 2008 crisis, which was doubled down in 2020 and afterwards. If you are a US citizen or few other countries, you remember that you also got a couple of checks of around $1,000 to $1,500. But that was a peanut compared to several trillions of dollars printed and was largely distributed among big tech companies. This graph shows printing of money over time for decades. So as you see, it was quite reasonable until that it started to rise sharply. And if you look at here, 2008, there is another sharp rise compared to previous slope gets steeper, and here is 2020 that it gets even far steeper than before, to show the perspective and how this sharp rise compares to preceding times. I will zoom in. So here again we see another sharp rise compared to before 2020. There is a sharp rise that also coincides with COVID outbreak. That these several trillions of money that were printed, actually they are turning our money into less value. But their corrupt fiat money system is breaking down and they must introduce a new system to maintain their power, and this new system must be digital central bank money, the CBDC. This printing fiat money was the last attempt by the financial elites to plunder people's assets in the dying financial system. 2022 is the historical endpoint of the fiat money and must be replaced by a new financial system that is called the CBDC. Central Bank Digital Currency. Here I will give a prediction with an exact date. Mark this. The introduction of the CBDC by the central bank will be on March 20, 2023. But before the introduction of the CBDC, the old financial system must be completely crashed down. The best strategy to reach a financial super crash is the hyperinflation. Remember billions and trillions of fiat money that was printed by the USA and EU central banks in 2022, 2021 and 2022 that turned your fiat money into trash. But from people's perspective, what would be the reason to leave the use of cash money which allows the people to freely use their cash money? Why will people accept the digital money? That means nothing else than to give up the basic rights to use own money the way they want, when they want, and where they want. The financial elites had to find here very good logical and practical reasons to let people to accept the use of a totally surveilled and controlled digital currency. One of these reasons was the health and hygiene issue, since a digital currency cannot transfer any microbes. Another reason was the prevention of money laundering, since digital currency transfer can be surveilled at all times, everywhere, and in case of need, the system can simply block the transfer of money or the entire account. Further reasons are practical daily reasons, like the prevention of theft, losing money, cost of cash money production and storage, and so on. Despite the fact that elites bring very logical and practical reasons, people are still not so naive to give up their freedom to use their cash money so easily. So, another very dramatic incident must happen that people must accept the digital currency. This incident is the total crash of the financial system in all countries at almost the same time, with the hyperinflation that began in July 2022 and will reach exorbitant highs in December 2022 to prepare the world for the CBDC. The economies of all countries are going to be crashed to the bottom, the middle class people will go under the poverty line, and the small and medium-sized enterprises will be getting bankrupt so that they are the first group to be taken over by the big companies. Consequently, people will lose their jobs, social, economic and financial unrest will follow. Finally, the states will practically and under the guise of humanitarian act offer the people a so-called universal basic income to help people to survive at a minimum level. This universal basic income will allow people just not to die. This universal basic income will be paid only and solely to the digital wallet. So, this digital wallet will be installed on the mobile phones and the CBDC will be transferred there. This will be the very beginning of the total control of the people. Everybody's behavior will be evaluated with different ways like social media platforms, surveillance cameras, etc. And in case if a person would raise his voice or just say his opinion in criticizing a measure of any institution, the financial system will simply paralyze the person in blocking all kinds of purchases, even the most essential purchases like buying bread, with the ultimate goal of educating the people to be obedient. Even though this looks a very murky eventuality and quite unbelievable, we are pretty close to this practice. In fact, since January 2022, people in China are using this digital wallet and are trained with the mentioned measures to be obedient. Also, some other countries like the Bahamas, Jamaica and 9 small islands in the Caribbean are in the test phase to experiment the digital wallets with the CBDC. Whether we believe or not, we are in a transitional phase and the introduction of the digital wallet and CBDC is imminent. It is planned for the 20th of March 2023. If we accept to lose the cash money, we will lose the era of a free society. And what does the introduction of the CBDC mean for the sovereign states, governments, economies, and the people? This means nothing else than a total dependency on the central bank so that the financial laws like individual tax rates at an individual interest rate will be set. The payments such as your salary could be cut off by the central bank. Finally, a social credit system like the existing Chinese prototype will be set everywhere. The submission of the people to the central bank will be complete and the authority of states will be one by one replaced by another authority, the central banks. The governments today have less and less to say, but so many people assume that the governments are becoming more and more authoritarian. But exactly the opposite is the case. Governments will be upended by these digital financial big companies. The governments can only do what the digital financial companies will ask them to do. If you have noticed recently, This is the reason why the justifications that the governments give for their political measures are becoming more and more absurd. The governments stick to their misinformation, disinformation, and their propaganda because they are simply pushed this way. Everyone, every government, every politician who opposes the will of the elites disappears very quickly from the surface. In these last 2.5 years, the big tech companies have opened a new chapter in the history of the economy. The phrase that money rules the world no longer applies today. It is not the case anymore. Instead, money and data rule the world. In our days, we are dealing with two great powers, each more powerful than anything the world has seen so far. But that is not all. These two powers have also joined forces to form a kind of mega government. From one hand, the big asset managers are now the major shareholders of the big IT companies. On the other hand, these big IT companies manage big data of the asset managers on a large scale. These data include all our data as well. This way, a gigantic cartel has been created out of the convergence of interests of these two groups of institutes, the big tech and the big asset managers. The hand of the elites reigning this cartel has not only been more powerful than any single government in the world during the last 2.5 years, but this hand is also capable of doing something that has never been seen in the history. Almost all the governments of the world are like pawns and act in the interest of this cartel created by the unholy marriage of big IT and financial companies. Now let's see what can the free sovereign people do against this tyranny. What are our responsibilities? What is the solution? Should we wait and look what will happen? No, we have responsibilities actually, and I think what I am doing now is exactly something we can do all together. We must educate the people because their games are complex and most of the people don't know or cannot easily accept all this I am telling here. So you must explain to the people, whoever is in your circle, what is going on in the background while we are distracted by superficial news. You must remember again and again that the powerful elites can only do what they are doing because most of us are not awake or do not understand what is really going on. If we educate the people, then we have the best possibility to effectively fight against all these plans and measures. So please give the link of this video to everybody you know so that we are all educated and awake to stay sovereign and free now and forever. To support the truth and this message, give me a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and turn on the notifications bell for more content in the future. Stay happy and free until the next time.